Hello, one and all, and welcome to yet another Umbrella Live session. We're really enjoying these sessions, and you guys are giving some really good feedback on the engagement. So to you watching at home, on the bus, wherever you will be on this return to level 2, thank you very much for watching. And today, really exciting 10-15 minutes we've got ahead of us. As you know, at Umbrella, we try and demystify as many of the buzzword bingo that happened across our industry, and artificial intelligence and chatbots can be one of those things that can seem unreal to the majority of businesses out there, specifically across the SMB audience that the majority of New Zealand businesses live in. And today we are joined by Alex from Spacetime. Alex will be joining us from the long line on Skype and giving us an insight into his world and the entrepreneurial businesses he started that is demystifying and also bringing the realities of artificial intelligence and chatbots and virtual assistants to the likes of New Zealand. So, Alex, happy Thursday and welcome to Level 2 Lockdown. It's a pleasure for you to join me today. Just for the record, me and Alex met quite a while ago, and since then we've both developed a bit of the COVID beard, which seems to be pretty hot on the market at the minute. Alex, welcome. So Spacetime, I've been keeping an eye on you guys for the last couple of years or so. Do you want to give us a view of Spacetime and the part that you play in bringing what you do to New Zealand business?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, David. I sure appreciate being here. And that was a fantastic intro by you, by the way.
Well, thank
really
you. Thank you.
On.
I do try.
Yeah, that's good. Spacetime. So, well, it's a little bit of an interesting story, really. We're in our third year. I actually came fresh out of Taranaki, mullet and all, moved up to Auckland to study a degree called computational logic, which is really a blending of philosophy and computer science papers. And so you touched pretty early on some of the concepts that I work with today that back up things like machine learning, neural nets, complex algorithms, discrete mathematics. And I got into that for a year and a half, and I realized very early on that not taking algebra or calculus at high school didn't do me any great benefit in actually working with mathematics, working deep in computer science. So I suppose this was really one of the first challenges for me, and I left that degree, went and studied something else, started a slew of businesses along the way, and then 5 or 6 years later I'm back with a big focus on artificial intelligence and what we can make computers do for us. So I really, where Spacetime came out of was I was running a digital marketing agency it's still going in the background. I was running that for 4 or 5 years, and we were having a lot of success helping small businesses get their websites going, get their CRMs going, email marketing and social media campaigns. But I suppose I got a little bit frustrated working at that lower end of the market and kind of doing the same thing over and over again. There's sort of a formula when it comes to small business marketing, particularly when you're working with the likes of restaurants, hairdressers and whatnot, right? And so I was lucky enough, my old man, he's been working in the SAP world for a number of years. He actually retired a few years ago, but he came to me and said, do you want to do something together? And it was a really interesting proposition for me. I'd been in business with a lot of different people. It's usually peers or friends, people you come across, but I thought this is interesting. This is a family connection. So we kind of looked at what opportunity was out there and where our skills overlapped. I've got a pretty good background in design thinking, and so we took my design thinking expertise and his knowledge of, I suppose, big software implementations with that SAP background, and we said, what can we do here? It didn't take us long to figure out that the likes of IBM, Microsoft, Google, various other players, even Alibaba, right, were offering cloud services. And some of those cloud services were really interesting, doing really interesting things. And with us being, he's reasonably technical, me less so, we're actually finding it quite easy to get into these services and prototype with them and demo them and try little smart things out with visual recognition and speech to text and virtual assistants and all that sort of thing. So we thought, let's really have a crack at it. Let's try to do something new, take New Zealand organisations to the next level by sort of overlaying this technology on what they're doing. And so that's really I suppose there's a bit of a long story, but that's really what we do is we take a design thinking approach to solving problems for businesses with a sort of specialized view, a specialized sort of filter of cloud cognitive services.
I think it's fascinating to hear that approach to commoditization, because you're exactly right. The large system integrators, the large ISVs, have made their mark in the industry by taking enterprises and creating these huge monolithic projects that ultimately do deliver value, but the barrier to entry is so high because of the cost of ultimately getting out of the ground. And we've seen a lot of revolution, I think, in the commoditization of the technologies that you speak of, and also the knowledge barrier to entry and the financial barrier to entry being massively reduced to allow these things to exist. And for me, it's fascinating to see that businesses like yours can start in a bootstrapped fashion and then move on to different levels of venture capitalism to hit a growth remit without needing to be an IBM, a Datacom, or a large ISV with, multi-million-dollar budgets to just get out of the ground. For those of people who are listening, who are hearing artificial intelligence, neural nets, and trying to get a understanding of actually the real world application of what that means in their businesses to drive some business value for them, on the understanding that now the barrier of entry has dropped, what's a good place to kind of start to go, okay, right, I know that artificial intelligence can leverage value for me, but actually how do I figure out where the value actually is?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, we deal with this with, every business that we've worked with, and every organization. This includes government, right? You kind of have you've got a couple of different types of customers, I suppose, or prospects that come to us. Some know they've heard about AI, or they've heard about a type of use case that involves that technology, emerging technology, and they come to us and go, we want to do something like this. And then you've got others that come in and go, we want to be ahead of the pack. We need to be doing something with AI. And so I suppose the approach for both of those guys is a little bit different. Someone comes to us and they're quite confident with their idea and their use case, and we'll help them explore that, go straight to the technology and start prototyping and running proof of concepts and that sort of thing. On the other side, you've got businesses who probably don't even have an idea of a use case. And that's when we go right back to the design thinking methodology and we start asking a lot of questions. We get really close to their business. And I'd say any company can do this. There's just a couple of things you should probably know going into it. So these are all based around what the technology can and can't achieve. And then there's also, you want to build some understanding of the context of your business, how that technology is going to work, right? And so I suppose the two big considerations, if you're looking at, AI or cloud or cognitive services in the cloud, one is you want scale of data or information, and the other would be that you've got scale of interactions with your customer or with employees, internal users, whatever that may be. If you don't have either of those, you may struggle to look at the various use cases that are commonplace with artificial intelligence and apply those to your business, because they're all backed by data, right? They're all backed by a big scale of data or interaction. If you don't have either of those, then you've really got to dive deep into your business. And a lot of times, if a business comes to us and says, we want to be ahead of the pack, we don't know what we need to do, but we want to use emerging technology and do something different, do something innovative. Then we'll ask them questions around why they're different and why are they already differentiated from the competitors in their market. And a good example of this would be a really favourite customer of ours, Fine Wine Delivery. So they're a beer, wine and spirits retailer. You can kind of see them in competition with someone like Glengarry or something like that. They're around that size. So you got the supermarkets that are retailing a whole lot of, it's that FMCG. They care about what brands they sell as far as beer, wine and spirits, but they're not specialists. And then you come down one level and you've got your Fine Wine Deliveries who know a hell of a lot about the product. And we realised early on that that's what differentiates them. Really, that's where the opportunity is for fine wine. One thing that they do is they taste, rate and guarantee, they say, every product that they have in stock, every product that they sell. So they've got thousands of SKUs, but they will taste every wine. They've got their sort of tasting team. They'll taste every wine, they'll write detailed tasting notes. And they've got something really cool that no one really knows about. It's a bit technical, but they've got a sort of a categorization matrix. And so there's 4 different ways you can score a wine, and they score every wine against that. So we really looked at the data that and sort of unique offering that Fine Wine Delivery already had, and said, let's look at all these technologies that we've worked with before. How do we overlay those technologies to help sort of scale what fine wine are already great at? And we're on to our second sort of program of work with them this year, and we just keep rolling things out. And so we've done some of the classic things with them, like chatbots. But what really worked well for Fine Wine was taking those tasting notes and saying, look, we've got all this information. How do we just make it easier for the customer to access this stuff? And so we did that through sort of recommendation engine, which you can find. We call it Smart Search. You can go on the Fine Wine website. You can search through products the same way you jump on Google and you search for anything in your own words. That's worked out really well. And now we're doing some personalization stuff with them. So I suppose the insight here is, if you're an organization and you think there's an opportunity for you in new technology, emerging technology, try as hard as you can to look at what makes you different as an organization and really build on that. I think that's your best bet, rather than trying to follow the pack in terms of, oh, our competitor's got a chatbot, we need a chatbot. I think that's probably the last way you want to look at it.
I mean, switching gears quickly on that one, because you've raised a good point about the idea creation. And the idea creation is something that personally I see as almost the stumbling block about how do you, where do you go with the technology? It's fine having a car, but you need to know where you want to go. It's not always the easiest thing to decide what your destination is, either where you want to go on holiday with technology, where your business wants to go. And people a lot of the time don't know what they don't know. I definitely sit in that camp for quite a lot of the decisions that I make. And therefore that journey is quite hard, and you can leverage other people's experience. Design thinking as a mechanism for that is perfect to allow you to unlock the value of other people's ideas. If we look at some use cases in the market where I've seen the fundamental shift, I looked at a company called Lemonade, who have done a fundamental reshift of insurance claiming, and done it purely through online insurance claiming, voice recognition, using cognitive services to decide whether, if you speak into the phone and your claim is false, it will be looking at lying voice patterns in your voice, and it will approve you or deny you, and taking out so much of that human supply chain of getting to a good claim. And the record for getting a claim submitted to being paid out is 13 seconds, which historically would have been weeks. And that is a needle shifter, like massively a needle shifter. Yeah. And it's not an incremental one, it's a huge transformational needle shift. And there's a quote from Elon Musk, which is around, I believe it's Elon Musk. If you need to design a car to do an extra 10 miles to the gallon, you look at how you can squeeze everything out of what you've got. If you need to design a car to go 1,000 miles on no fuel, you have to fundamentally redesign everything. And I think that is, for me, is the interesting part, is how do we get out of the day-to-day to take the big steps back to go, actually, is everything I'm doing disruptable now? Where do I need to poke, and having the courage to be able to do it? And it sounds like design thinking is kind of the foundation of that.
Yeah, that is a Lemonade, I think you called it. That's a terrific example. I need to go and have a look, and it really tells that story of get specific on what your product is and then try and work with that, rather than looking at all of the general things that businesses do as far as sales, marketing, finance, whatever. What are you doing? What's important about what you're doing, and how do you change that? I suppose from a design thinking perspective, we do this with just about every customer, and sometimes we just do coaching on this particular exercise, and it's customer journey mapping. Now, I'm sure you've heard of it. A lot of the people listening now will have heard of it. Maybe you haven't tried it, and that's what I'd recommend you go and do, and we do it for ourselves regularly too. Looking at the customer journey map, we follow the way that everyone else does it, but I suppose we look at we make a couple of changes. We look at what data the business has within it, and so across that journey that the customer, or even if you're looking at it in terms of what's an employee experience within the organization, what data do they have around them, or what data do they come into contact with at any time, or what data would improve that journey for the user or the customer. That's one thing that we do. But we also get quite deep into what those pain points are, and again, a lot of buzzwords here, but tried and true. It's really been working for us, looking at what the issues are, If you're trying to make an improvement in your business, a great way to do it is get specific on who your user is and just making things better. And that lemonade example, again, it's a good one, right? What's the best customer experience for them? Getting a claim approved as quickly as possible, and allowing the user to do it whenever they want, any time of day, through their chosen device. They don't have to talk to someone. I think that's a great example of how looking at the sort of things that are going wrong in your business can often lead you to a place of opportunity.
In terms of that example with Lemonade, and I will share the link with you afterwards because it's a fascinating case study. There would have been a perception in that business at the time that the technology that was coming into the organization was going to pull against a culture of keeping people safe in their jobs and employed, and technology disrupting the roles that exist today, which arguably can be positive and negative for the organization and for the people itself. What's your coaching and guidance to business owners who are watching today, who are concerned that bringing this technology into their business is going to have a negative effect on their people?
Yeah, great question. So there's a couple of things here. The first is just from personal experience. Everyone we've worked with, a little bit of a point to make about. We've never seen anyone that we've worked with, even on automation-heavy projects, we've never seen any company downsize. They only grow after they implement projects like this. And it's often because they're finding efficiency and productivity that they didn't have before, which just opens up cash flow and opens up time for people to do other tasks and those sorts of things. The other thing I was going to mention was, I suppose, you kind of learn this when you get into business, or even if you're coming up in a company and you get to a position where you start managing teams, is communication is absolutely key, right? And design thinking is great with this. So you get everyone in on the ground floor, all the subject matter experts, all the necessary stakeholders, and you make the communication happen there. You kind of bring everyone along on the ride, on the journey of whether we're automating a process or we're changing the way this workflow happens for you, or we're going to put a chatbot in. We think this is going to drop a lot of the inquiries that you receive as a customer support person every day. It's bringing them on that journey and letting them know what the benefits are going to be, and actively looking for input from those people. It's not every project, but a lot of projects, there'll be someone there that has some sort of issue with either, what the project stands for, what the outcome of the project's going to be, who they're working with, or there's usually someone that has some sort of gripe. But what we find every time is if you get them involved and you listen, and then you get them to actually input and have their say, you can cross all those barriers quite easily in the end. It's in design thinking, we talk about creativity and collaboration being the two key values, and so you really need to communicate a lot if you want those things to work well. You need to bring everyone in, and I think you pass those fears of my job's being automated, or this is going to put me out of the job. You get past those pretty quickly, I find.
Yeah, I think we are in a world where, whilst technology does promise monumental shifts at velocity and speed and scale, we still have the human factor to go through, which is people do take time to change and develop new habits and behaviors. However, ultimately, if businesses were still operating with the same technology they were 100 years ago, they would be out of business. And it is an evolutionary, absolutely never an evolutionary thing. And by adopting new ways of working, which are the best thing for the business, actually protects that business being even in business, which is a good thing for everyone. But I do understand and empathise with the journey that decision makers have got to go on to consider their people and take them on the journey. But good stakeholder management seems to be the key.
Yeah, and you make a really good point, David, because I haven't even thought of it that way. But kind of in line with that is the idea that people have feared technology for various reasons forever, and it's kind of just a necessary technology, whether it be digital or whether it be language, right, or learning how to create fire in our really, really early years. It's often a challenge, and it's often a double-edged sword, but it's innate. It's something that we always work towards, no matter what. I don't see that. I don't see us really changing that from a societal perspective and go, actually, no, technology, we're going to consider it bad and we're going to stop developing technology wholesale. It's always going to keep happening. There's always going to be fears. I suppose it's just about, keeping everyone on the same page and making sure you're being transparent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Alex, I've taken up at least 20 minutes or so of your afternoon this afternoon. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. From a space-time perspective, if anybody is watching and wishes to know more about your organisation, where's the best place for them to go and get in contact with you and learn a little bit more?
Yeah, jump on the website. So we're at www.spacetime.co.nz, or you can search for me on LinkedIn and approach me that way. A lot of people get to me through LinkedIn, but yeah, have a look on the website, fill out the form. We get back in touch with people really quickly. And I mean, if you just want to discuss what your sort of thoughts are and any ideas you've got, we're always happy to do that. If you're keen to get stuck into something straight away, we can do that too.
Cool. Awesome. Alex, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you around. Now we're in level 2. We'll catch up for a beer sometime very soon.
Okay.
Alex Bartley Catt from Spacetime, thank you very much. See you soon, sir.
Thank you, David.
Well, that's it again. End of another interview session on umbrella.com and Umbrella Connect. Thank you so much for you guys joining in. We will see you again for another interview very soon. And for now, over and out. See you all, everyone. Bye-bye.